Greetings and salutations. I'm your host, Gabe Morales. Today we're going to cover what I consider to be the top 10 most influential Bloods and Pyrus ever. One of the guys that is mentioned often in the history of the Bloods, and not always in a good light by individuals like OG Frog from Bounty Hunters, was Reno Williams. He was one of the founding members of the United Bloodline, also known as Damu Mastari. They started in October 1980 as the Blood Family, and then in 1983 were renamed United Bloodline. Their goal was to unite all Blood street gangs, but according to many, they actually caused a lot of divisions. Among the founders were OG Reno Williams, previously described, Rooster Farrell, and Dickie Bird Campbell. Reno was from the 8-4 Swans, Rooster was from the Bottoms, and Dickie Bird was from Bounty Hunters. When all three joined forces, they pretty much pushed out the United Blood Nation in California, but United Bloodline is still very active and has some ties to the Black Gorilla family. James Bolo Crawford is a well-known LA Bounty Hunter Bloods gang member from the Nickerson Garden Projects in Watts. He is also a United Bloodline captain. Bolo, also called Mutope Duguma, took a leadership position amongst all blacks in the whole for segregation by checking out their court paperwork and doing background checks on them and writing to other Blood gang members, especially those who had a hardline ideology. He started doing time on February 20th, 1991. He is still engaged in public criticism of the California Department of Corrections and is currently located at the Los Angeles County Prison in Lancaster at the age of 56 years old. Because of his longtime activity and involvement with blood politics, he makes my top 10 list. T. Rogers was considered one of the leaders of the Black P. Stones in Los Angeles. They didn't appear there until the late 1960s via T when he was 12 years old when his family moved from Chicago. The Black P. Stones are sometimes referred to as the Jungle Stones, since much of their turf lies in the jungles, as depicted in the movie Training Day. This area has a lot of tightly packed Baldwin Village apartments on streets with dead-end cul-de-sacs. Today, the Black P. Stones are broken down into two main factions, the Jungles and the Biddy, which are those P. Stones located outside of the jungle, closer to Mid-City. T. Rogers has been featured in many gang documentaries and has been involved in peace talks. In September 2021, T. Rogers died, and many Bloods and even some Crips attended his funeral. He was 65 years old. Marion Suge Knight Jr. was born on April 19th, 1965, in Compton, California, as the son of Maxine and Marion Knight Sr. His moniker derives from a childhood name, Sugar Bear. He attended Linwood High School in nearby Linwood, California, where he was a football and track star and graduated in 1983. From 1983 to 1985, he attended and played football at El Camino College. Then in 1985, he transferred to the University of Nevada in Las Vegas and played college football there for 2 years. Suge went on to be undrafted in the 1987 NFL draft, but was invited to the LA Rams training camp. Even though he was cut by the Rams during camp, he became a replacement player during the 1987 NFL player strike and played for 2 games in Rams uniform. After his short NFL career, Knight found work as a concert promoter and bodyguard for celebrities, including singer Bobby Brown. In 1989, Knight formed his own music publishing company, which was backed in part by dealing a lot of heroin out of Looters Park, according to Cynthia Nunn, who's considered one of the OG Pyrus in Compton. It eventually worked with NWA and Dr. Dre, who wanted to leave their label, Ruthless Records, that they felt was being mismanaged by Jerry Heller. This is portrayed in the movie Straight Outta Compton. Dre and DOC co-founded Death Row Records in 1991 in conjunction with Knight and with the financial backing of big-time drug dealer Michael Harry O'Harris, and they vowed to make it the Motown of the 1990s. Eventually, Suge got into big beef with East Coast entrepreneur Sean Puff Daddy Combs, who had a lot of rappers on his Bad Boy label. And Knight insulted Combs and Bad Boy at the Source Awards in August 1995 by coming on stage and announcing,
and one other thing I'd like to say, any artists out there want to be an artist, and want to stay a star and don't want to have to worry about the executive producer trying to be all in the videos, all on the record, dancing. Come to Death Row.
That same year, Knight offered to post bail nearly $1.5 million for Tupac Shakur if the rapper agreed to sign with Death Row. Dr. Dre left Death Row Records shortly before Shakur's death, followed by Snoop Dogg 2 years later, and the label rapidly declined without two of their biggest stars. In September 2018, Knight pled no contest to the voluntary manslaughter of a 2015 hit-and-run incident that happened at a burger stand in a parking lot in Compton, California. This resulted in the death of partial movie financier Terry Carter, co-founder with Ice Cube of Heavyweight Records. A dispute is said to have occurred when Suge found out that he would not be compensated and was being portrayed in a very negative light for the movie Straight Outta Compton, which was filmed in that city as well as in parts of Los Angeles. Former Blood and actor Clay Bone Sloan was on the set as an advisor. It is thought that Suge actually was aiming for Bone, who suffered a mangled foot and head injuries, but ran over Carter instead. Suge Knight's conviction, along with previous felonies, resulted in him being hit with the 3 strikes law. Suge Knight is eligible for parole in October 2034. Suge was also known as claiming Mob Piru, although some Pirus in Compton said he was more of an associate than an active gangbanger. Death Row Records was purchased by former label star Snoop Dogg in 2022. And cleaning up my list of the top 10 most influential Pirus and Bloods ever are the Lavender Brothers, Jimmy and Bobby. They were co-founders of the Bishops, which was a gang formed in South Central. And while the Bishops did not join the Bloods Alliance until after the Lavenders left the gang lifestyle, they're mentioned here because I feel they're key players in the development of the Crips and Bloods in LA. Jimmy is the author of Bitter Rain and a Better Tomorrow, a book that well describes events of many Crips and Bloods and Blacks in the greater Los Angeles area at the time, during the late 1960s through 1970s. In his book, Jimmy notes that his older brother Bobby had a meeting with Raymond, and they talked about the Crips' war against the bounty hunters in the Nickerson Garden projects. Raymond even offered the Lavender Brothers, leader of the Bishops, to become Crips in 1972 if they assisted in killing bounty hunter leader Junior Thomas. For Jimmy Lavender, Raymond told them he'd even give up the 2 Crips that killed their homeboy Lionel Skip Campbell if they joined the Crips. But the meeting ended with no agreements. The Pueblos came out of the Pueblo del Rio housing project in South Central LA. After the Lavenders left the gang, the Bishops became Bloods in 1974, and the 2 gangs combined forces as the Pueblo Bishops and the Low Bottoms. Today, the Pueblo Bishops also have an alliance with the Watts Bebop Bloods. Both Bobby and Jimmy have done community work since the early 1970s, and Jimmy is currently working on a new community organization called TROP. And so, like I said, even though they were not officially Bloods yet, they knew all the top Crips and Bloods of the day. And so, Jimmy and Bobby Lavender make my list of top 10 most influential Bloods and Pirus ever. I continue to track Crip and Blood activity as they have a huge impact on violence in the greater Los Angeles area today and all over the United States. Again, I do not intend to glamorize any of these individuals. I just want you to be aware of them and some of the evolution of the Pirus and Bloods. I hope you enjoyed this episode and return for many more. This is Gabe Morales signing off for Gangsters Cops.